Let's do it.
We are back live as Irby was asking, "What the hell are we doing here?" As recording countdown started. So we're going to do it live. One thing we're not going to get into is maybe we will. The UWGB women traveling to Minnesota in the women's NCAA bracket that hits home for Irby and Druzy as UWGB former athletes and esteemed alumni. Quick thoughts. Let's just open with quick thoughts. Is it a hometown screw job that they have to go on the road to face the Gophers?
For the 27th year in a row, yes, it's a screw job for UW Green Bay. Being a mid-major, they don't ever host. They always have to go and play. I think the NCAA needs to revisit their thoughts with the women's tournament because they always have hosts, and a higher seed will host, and GB is always on the road. So it's a tough win for GB. And just our quick chat here before the episode, Druzy thinks that this is a decent matchup for the Phoenix. I'm happy to hear that. The problem is, the good news is it's a 4-hour drive. Bad news is you're playing in their home gym. So I think this is a game that GB, I hope they can win. They deserve to be in the field of 32. Drew, what's your thoughts?
Agree wholeheartedly. I know why the NCAA does it with the women's tournament and trying to get attendance, versus the neutral site, for the men, but it doesn't foster the upsets and the excitement to me that it does in the men's, and I just wish there was another way to do it. I don't maybe know the solution, so in some ways it's not fair, but maybe it's because I feel like the Green Bay ladies get screwed each and every single year with some road trip to a team they shouldn't have to play in the first round, and this is just another example of it. So we'll see how it goes, but certainly rooting for the GB ladies.
I mean, other than having the advantage of winning, even for the host teams, it kind of takes a little excitement out of going to play in the Superdome, or that's an exaggeration, but some off-site place, and you're there with your team and your hotels, and what do you just go home after the game? It's kind of weird.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going back to the men's bracket, oddly enough. Shock that we're going to focus on the men's tournament in this round. We took people, pretty much through the Sweet 16 up until the Elite Eight. We did a little covering of the Elite Eight matchups. We didn't take it all the way to the Final Four. We know people have to fill out their entire bracket at once, so we will take you through to the Final Four, and then we'll get to some favorites for Calcutta. We're just going to live broadcast our strategy to our opponents. And, of course, we'll come back with the results when we get none of the teams. We're the only guys that think Houston's good. We're going to secretly get a steal on them. That's how it goes when you talk about this stuff. Let's not go in the same order because I don't want to get bogged down on the Wisconsin-Arkansas matchup because there was some disagreement there. We are going to start in the East with this Duke and Michigan State matchup. We kind of thought St. John's, Kansas, the winner of that game, it's a formidable team, but we agree they're probably not going to take down Duke. I mean, I kind of like Kansas just because we've talked about them a lot, but like I said, they have these weird things where they get behind, they kind of lay a dud once in a while, and I think if you're playing Duke, if you do get past St. John's, there's no time for taking a dump versus Duke.
Yeah, just a word for our listeners who are trying to fill out their brackets as we bungle through this and make our inside jokes. Duke is one injury away from not being the number one overall seed. Now, I think the plan here in the pollsters, listening to the smarter brains and heads than I, the projections are that Duke is going to be healthy. Right now, they're one injury away from being a 4 seed. But if they get healthy, they're a true 1 seed. Just be sure that you watch that. Obviously, you can't watch it throughout the tournament. They're as healthy as they can be, so you've got to be smart. You can't change. There's no eraser on the bracket games. But I like Duke coming out of this into the Final Four. I do think that there is going to be something to be said with Izzo and Michigan State. I don't think UConn is going to factor into this. I think it's more of a concern with Michigan State, in my opinion. But I'd like Duke to come through here. You got to be careful. Last year's Duke team, man, was one of the best Duke teams in the last 10 years, and they didn't make it. So I do just be wary of the Blue Devils, but that Boozer boy is the real deal, both of them.
The latest update here is this Caleb Foster is going to be back the first week of April, and he might not be the star player, but it does say he's playing about 25 minutes a game, and you start playing a couple times a week against increasingly tough opponents. You have the aforementioned Ngangba the second. He's out, maybe back, maybe limited. You can get by Siena. You probably get to the Sweet 16 without those two guys. But yeah, when you start facing Michigan State, that's another thing. Jersey, are you as comfortable with Irby taking Duke all the way through to the Final Four, or we're going to pick a spot here?
I do like Duke. And I feel like in some ways I've maybe underestimated Duke all year. I feel like maybe they were too reliant on Cameron Boozer, but the more I looked at their supporting cast, it was like Dame Sarr has looked really good lately. And even Caden Boozer was actually one of their best player the other night in the ACC championship game. But to Irby's point, I do think it's about health. If they can just survive, I feel like Duke's going to get through this first weekend, and if they can get to the next round and get some of their players back to full health, that would be huge. Of course, it's a question mark of how healthy they're actually going to be, but Duke at full strength is absolutely a juggernaut and probably the favorite to win the whole thing. I think it was impressive that they went on and won the ACC tournament without a couple of those guys. So I do like Duke in this one. I do think they're the most talented team, and because they have the best player, Cameron Boozer.
Is Michigan State a tougher matchup? We're taking them to beat UConn or get past UCLA if they beat UConn. What do you think about a Duke-UConn matchup? Should anyone be going full chalk here? Is that similar play styles?
I don't like UConn's team. Now, I did like UConn's team the last 2 years, and there's some familiar faces on that roster still. There's probably 2 or 3 guys. I think Ball is still there. I think that white dude, the kind of the point forward guy, is still there, shoots a lot of threes. They just are too up and down for me to lean on UConn. They're coming out of a bad conference. So is Duke, but Michigan State is not. Michigan State scares me because he didn't play well in the Big Ten, but all of that does not matter with Izzo and March Madness. Like he gets his guys to play well. They're athletic. They go quick. They're a good team. I like the Spartans. I don't think UConn has enough for the Spartans or UCLA or any other Big Ten team for that matter.
We had Duke entering the Final Four. Moving on to the South, we had a pretty uniform agreement on Florida getting through to the Elite Eight matchup. Vanderbilt, obviously, we have questions about them versus McNeese. Nebraska has kind of been a little bit of a smoke and mirrors. Are they really, in a clear 2-2 Big Ten team, or are they really just like every other not Michigan team in the Big Ten where they, just pick them out of a hat, see if they're good enough? But we feel pretty comfortable with Florida. Where we had some questions developing is in this Sweet 16 matchup, which it's one of those deceiving things about the NCAA tournament. When you get to the Sweet 16, it's supposed to be 2 versus 3. Those are tough games to pick, and we're going to have to make one that our listeners can bank on here. Illinois and Houston, I think we were pretty clear on that. We think St. Mary's could tough it out. We don't think Penn is any good, and we don't really care about Dean Smith and the Tar Heels. Houston, Illinois. What's our final answer here? Let's start with Druzy. If you had to pick one, who are you picking, and what's the deciding factor?
I'm going to go with Houston. It should be a great matchup if that's how it plays out. I just feel like they're a battle-tested team. LJ Cryers seems like he was playing on Baylor's Final Four team like 5 years ago. And the freshman that we talked about earlier, Kingston Flemings, is unbelievable. I feel like Houston is just made for this time of year. And Illinois, for as good as they are, have just had 2 or 3 clunkers that were inexplicable for how much talent they have. And that's why maybe I just trust Houston a little bit more. And so I'm going to go with Houston.
I'm going to concur with you, Drew. I've been on Houston since probably November. I'm not jumping off that bandwagon. That team shoots threes. you kind of forget because of that point guard, that freshman point guard, they still have Sharp on the roster. He's going to come up big in this tournament. He is an important cog off the bench on that team. He's good. Houston's better than Illinois. Illinois doesn't guard through the three-point line, and that will be the difference and the reason that Illinois does not move on. They're too foreign. This isn't the Champions League. They lose. Houston moves on.
That's a European soccer reference for all the listeners. Did Houston cause any concern for you guys as they kind of came on and we thought they might win the Big 12, kind of unseed Arizona? You know, it feels like Iowa State was hotter, a little more exciting. Did Houston fade, or did Houston just, they didn't win a couple games that were less important than what we're going to be talking about here versus Illinois?
I feel like, well, first of all, props to Irby. I said LJ Cryer. I meant Emmanuel Sharp, so thanks, Irby. I think Houston, I just feel like I don't know. Big 12 is a tough conference, and I feel like Houston has been more consistent all year and hasn't had the ups and downs. It feels like even the games they lost were like 3 or 4 point games to very good teams or on the road. So now what I will say is I feel like Houston doesn't have maybe as much depth as Illinois. Illinois's got a couple guys they can bring off the bench. Houston relies largely on their starters, so something to keep an eye on as we move forward is the reliance on Houston and their starters, but I still tend to lean towards Houston.
The difference in this game, guys, is the physical nature that Houston the Cougars play with. Like, if you've ever tackled a Cougar in your nightlife, it is not something you want to mess around with, right? They are.
I disagree.
A tough team. Well, it's a tough team, brother. It's a tough team. Those Cougars will come after you. But I will tell you that it is a physical defensive team. They're going to push Illinois into some uncomfortable situations, and I don't think they've got enough to be able to stand up to that. I think they fold. Houston's going to get through that game, and that is the difference that pushes them into the Elite Eight. But the big question we should be talking about is who wins that 1-2. That's going to be the conversation point in this little spurt.
Gators, Cougars. Users are picking Florida. I don't know if we trust the users on CBSSports.com very much. Similar, records in the top 10, similar net rank, a lot of similarities as far as the numbers go. Druzy, I think we know where Urban might go on this one. What are you thinking here? I mean, Florida doesn't have injuries. They've been kind of quietly just going about their business all year. They picked up some losses. They have 7 losses. They haven't been unbeatable. Are they going to get hot at the right time? And are we overlooking Florida at all?
Yeah, potentially. Florida, like you just said, Dilly, has played really well in the last 3-4 weeks. I know they got tripped up by obviously a garbage Vanderbilt team that doesn't deserve to be in the tournament. But
yes.
One thing to keep in mind here, I just wonder how much – I do feel like Florida's path is significantly easier, right? I mean, we start Houston, if they have to get through St. Mary's and they have to get through Illinois, Florida looks like they have a little bit more of a cakewalk. That said, I'm still going to go with Houston. I just feel like this – I like the Houston roster. I like Kelvin Sampson. I just feel like they're going to get it done. I got Houston.
Yeah, I'm going to lean that way too. And I've said about 13 seconds ago that I've been on Houston all year since about November. I'm not jumping off here. Florida scares me, and they scare me because they got beat handily against Vanderbilt in a team that's not good, guys. Vanderbilt is not a good team. Don't put money on them. Do not buy it in your perspective Calcutta unless you can get them under 50. But I'll tell you right now, Houston is better. Houston is better. The Florida Gators had their year in the sunshine, and that was a year ago. And let's don't forget, the reason that the Florida Gators won the national championship is because of a point guard that is no longer there that has gym range. That was the difference that won them the national championship. So everybody's saying, well, it's a roster full of guys that were in the national champions last year. Without one dude, and that dude was real important. If you remember back, Houston has those dudes and a few more dudes that are better than the dudes they had last year. So this is a Houston team that does wreak a little bit of revenge here. I like the Houston Cougars going to the Final Four.
Just more dudes. Quick Calcutta sidebar, Irby. We haven't done our Calcutta strategy talk yet. Number one of Calcutta, you cannot try to make the dollars make any sense whatsoever. Certainly, if you're looking at like betting odds, you're like, well, why don't I just instead of spending $53 on McNeese, why don't I just put a $10 bet on them to win? I'll make money. I'll make more money. That's just the reality of it. And the idea that a 5-seed Vanderbilt, who stinks and is terrible and almost certainly will lose, that'll be probably $280 to $400. If somebody likes them, if two groups of guys like them, that could be a $450 team. So just be ready to be sitting in that auction thinking, what a bunch of idiots. And then all of a sudden we'll have Penn for $56 just because we haven't had a team yet. We're like, we got to have one. And hell, if they make the Sweet 16, we made $48. All right. This is how it works in the old Calcutta, boys. We got Duke in Houston. We're going to continue counterclockwise so we can finish with that little mess of Arizona, who lacks big dudes, Wisconsin, and Arkansas. We're going to go to the Midwest, where we have Michigan, who, we kind of advanced Alabama over Michigan. We kind of like Alabama. There's a little hometown juice in the Midwest there from northeast Wisconsin area. We like that. Are we making a mistake advancing Alabama past Michigan? Just a quick chance to review.
I don't think it's a mistake. I think Alabama is one of the most talented teams in the country. I think Alabama has the team to make it to the Final Four. I'm interested to try to get overruled in this little conversation at the Audible Angle today because I like Alabama coming out of here. There's going to be a tough matchup against Iowa State, but I think that Michigan being the number one is probably one of the weaker number ones, in my opinion. Their star player likes to hide. You saw him hide until the last shot against Wisconsin. And I don't like Michigan. I like Alabama because they have 4 or 5 guys that can make that big shot and are willing to take that big shot.
Jersey, are you still feeling secure with a little bit of an upset pick here with the 4-seed Bama taking out 31-2, Michigan ranked second net rank, 9-1 versus a top 25, third hardest schedule, score 187 points a game. They only give up 22 points a game.
Yeah, they're clearly terrible. Yeah, I would if I had to pick, if it was my pick, I would pick Michigan, but admittedly, I don't love it. Alabama is really, really good, and Michigan seems like they're just not playing well right now for whatever that's worth. And I think Alabama does have the star power to beat Michigan. I guess I would just lean against Michigan's overall resume. I mean, they've put together a pretty impressive season, but I would take Michigan slightly over Alabama. But again, I don't feel great about it.
I believe, Druzy, correct me if I'm wrong, Michigan's got one of their key players hurt right now, and he's not coming back. He's not coming back. So that's
a huge part of it. Yeah,
that's a big.
It's a good point.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think this is the team that we saw in the last week is the team we're going to see next week, and that's the one that I would worry about because it's going to be the same. That's the team you're going to be bidding on, or that's the team that you're going to be choosing. So I think the team, to be honest, on the other side, Drew, sorry, I'll let you get in here. Alabama is a different team today and in the next 3 weeks than they were 8 weeks ago, which is why they got a 4 seed, right? They didn't win games in December and February.
No, for sure, and I don't disagree, Herbs. That's probably part of the reason, or maybe the key reason why Michigan maybe doesn't see themselves the last couple of weeks is because of the injury. You know what? We're taking Alabama. Let's go Crimson Tide. We're going to go a little bit of an upset here. Alabama. I'm sold.
We didn't have much trouble taking Iowa State to make it out of their little mess of Tennessee, Virginia, and Kentucky. I mean, we have Miami of Ohio possibly as the sternest test on that part of the bracket. And Santa Clara, not terrible, but it's a bunch of teams that we don't think are really going to go anywhere. So we got Alabama and Iowa State. Iowa State, these Big 12 teams, hard to judge. Beat each other up. We talked about it for months. Their net rank is 7th. We already talked about Bama, 18th, but is that Is that 18th over the whole course of the year or 18th over the last month? They'd be higher over the last month than 18. Does Iowa State assert a level of Big 12 dominance and represent the Big 12 as the second Big 12 team to reach the Final Four? Ruby.
I've got to say yes. Iowa State is better than both Michigan or Alabama. Even if you didn't have the upset special with Alabama, which I think a lot of people will, certainly we've decided it here. Either way, Iowa State gets through that top side of that bracket. I think Iowa State is a Final Four team. They were a Final Four team in November. They were a Final Four team in December, January, and February. And come March, they'll show you that they are a Final Four team. I like Iowa State. I like their grit. I like their Monsilovich three-point shots. I like that. That's another Wisconsin tie there, Dilly, even though it sounds like he's from the Czech Republic. He's not. He's from Wisconsin.
Do you agree that it doesn't necessarily matter whether it's Michigan or Alabama? Iowa State is getting through to represent the Big 12.
I do agree. I really like Iowa State for a lot of the reasons Irby mentioned. It seems like they check a lot of boxes for teams that are going to make a deep run. Experienced point guard, Taman Lipsey, check. Irby talked about Momcilovic, big-time scorer, and also Joshua Jefferson. I mean, they got star power, and they got a little bit of depth. They've had a couple confounding games this year, but I think overall their resume speaks for itself. They crushed Purdue on the road. They hung with Arizona the other day. I think Iowa State's legit. I think they're going to the Final Four.
So we got three locks: Duke, Houston, Iowa State, with a little sniff of Michigan State, giving us a little consternation. Obviously, Florida, they're a 1 seed. They're pretty good. That gives us a little uncertainty, but we like it. And Iowa State almost feels like we're most confident in Iowa State right now, because that was a pretty definitive answer by everyone on Michigan or Alabama.
Midwest is by far one of the weakest regions, in my opinion, outside of Iowa State. If you look at the rest of the regions, I don't think this is a lucky one for Iowa State to fall in. Plus, they're not traveling very far. This is a Midwest bracket here that I think plays well for Iowa State.
Now we move into the West, possibly our most contentious situation. We'll start at the bottom because we're scrolling up. And, as of right now, we have Purdue coming out of this mess. And I don't know if anybody really feels good about Purdue, but nobody feels good about Queens, Missouri, Miami, Kennesaw, Texas, or NC State. Tried to talk ourselves into BYU a little bit. We tried to talk ourselves into Gonzaga a little bit. Does anybody want to take another stab at a team knocking out Purdue before we get to the Elite Eight here?
I like Purdue, Dilly, for a lot of the reasons you just mentioned, because I feel like that whole side, that whole quadrant of the bracket is Purdue's to lose. I don't feel like there's a lot of great teams there, and Purdue's kind of the best of the bunch, and it's just hard for me to see any other team making it through. So with that, probably kick it to Irby. Get his thoughts on the Boilermakers.
Boilermakers stink. Here's the deal, but they're going to go into that Elite Eight game against whoever comes out of that top. The bottom of this bracket, it couldn't have worked out any better. Kind of the same thing that happened in the Big Ten tournament for Purdue. They lost that game against Wisconsin, and it actually turned out better for them, because then they had a little bit easier way. UCLA is a good basketball team, but they're not. That was the game that was the difference in this. Yes, they had to beat Michigan, and yes, they did beat Michigan. Braden Smith has a heart attack because he's 65 years old, and I don't think he gets through the top bracket, but we've got to sort that out and who's going to face him. But I do like the Purdue Boilermakers in the Elite Eight here.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard Irby talk about BYU enough that it makes me want to believe that. Gonzaga, it's just a historical, no matter what seed they are, you feel like they're the underdog upset special, and it's just hard to validate them getting through. I mean, I do think that that's probably the other team you could consider. BYU hasn't, they've underwhelmed enough that they're uncomfortable to pick them. Just filibustering a little bit, because I'm gonna reset this all the way back to High Point versus Wisconsin. Is Wisconsin getting past High Point, Jersey?
They are, but I feel like it's going to be testy and it's going to be nervy. I think in the end, Wisconsin's got too much talent, and Wisconsin's actually playing some pretty good ball lately. I do agree with Irby's assessment of their backcourt. Got a good backcourt this time of year. You're going to give yourself a chance. And Wisconsin, like a completely different reborn Wisconsin team with the offense versus the lockdown defense, and I think it suits them well with the talent that they have. Throw in Braden Carrington, and I do think they get past High Point, but it's not going to be a breeze.
This is a team that's different in this than Wisconsin teams, as you pointed out, Druzy. This is the highest scoring Wisconsin team since the late 60s, early 70s in Wisconsin. That's not saying much. Wisconsin has had a very good pedigree. This is a winning program. High Point is also a winning program, but not on the same level as Wisconsin. The difference makers, and we've been on it all year, Dilly. We've been chatting, Drew. We know that what we're going to get from that backcourt, right? Boyd and Blackwell are who they are. Lately, last game, it came out of nowhere. The Aussie, Austin Rapp, made 5 straight threes. Braden Carrington chipped in. We got to get a little something from Rhodey, and those are the players that are the difference makers. I will tell you that I believe Nolan Winter is healthy enough to play in the Big Ten. They held him the Big Ten tournament. They held him out so that he's ready and fresh for the NCAA double tournament, because that's when it matters. If we get Nolan Winter to play a game within 10 to 15 points, and we get that stuff that's chipping in with those 3 guys that I talked about, Carrington, Rapp, maybe Rhodey, we're going to win this game. Wisconsin's going to win this game. High Point's good. Unfortunately, ran into one of the hottest teams here. Wisconsin gets past them, and I think it will be close, Drew, because that's what Wisconsin Badgers do, but they've won close games before, a number of them against a lot better teams than High Point. Maybe their style makes it uncomfortable for the Badgers, but this team likes to run, and they will run with High Point. They'll just make more threes than High Point does.
So maybe bottom line is maybe at most sprinkle in a couple dollars on High Point plus 10.5, but they're not advancing. And that gets us back to Wisconsin-Arkansas, which is just a hell of a second game matchup. How do we end up here? 4-5, Wisconsin, Arkansas. We have Wisconsin advancing. Usually had some trepidation. Arkansas allegedly 17th net ranking, 4-6 against the top 25. They score 90 points a game. That's a lot of points. Irby, any trepidation here with your Wisconsin pick? It does look like Winter will be back.
He will be, right? Yeah. The Razorbacks are a good basketball team, right? Acuff is a great point guard, but when Acuff is a freshman, right? And sometimes, guys, I get it. Freshmen don't know what they don't know. But don't forget that Mr. Boyd made a run with FAU. He's been to the Final Four before. Greg Gard has been close. He's been there as an assistant coach. He was there with Bo Ryan. He was on that staff. He's been on that staff for 37 years, it feels like. So this is a team in Wisconsin. If you talk about Drew, I think this is a backcourt versus backcourt game, and I like our backcourt at Wisconsin better than the Razorbacks. Maybe there's a better supporting cast, and I'd like to hear that argument for Arkansas than Wisconsin. But I do like the way they've been playing. Wisconsin's been doing all of this without Winter, and if he's back, everybody else is rolling, and we've got more chip in, and we just add 15 points to an already high-scoring offense. I like our backcourt against a freshman who's very talented, probably one of the best point guards in the league outside the kid that plays in Houston. This is an interesting matchup, but I like the Badgers.
Jersey, final word before I make the final call.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great game. It'd be a hell of a game. I hope this is the way it lines up. There should be a lot of points. It should be an entertaining game. I do think Arkansas's supporting – I mean, Acuff is unbelievable, but their supporting cast is not bad. I mean, Malik Thomas, almost 16 points per game, and Trevon Brazil, 13 points a game. And I feel like Wisconsin probably over the course of the year, a little bit more consistent team. You know what you're going to get. Arkansas kind of up and down, so it's kind of like if you get Arkansas's best shot, I would take Arkansas. Wisconsin, you probably know a little bit what you're going to get. But, I mean, Arkansas looked so good today. I feel like it's a coin flip. I could go either way. Certainly can't wait to watch this game if this is the way it pans out, and we think it will.
Final word, we're going Wisconsin, which brings us to whichever team is going to beat Purdue, Arizona or Wisconsin, and also Arkansas would beat them if they get there. Arizona versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin, to their credit, has taken down Michigan on the road. They've had big wins. They've played tough games. They've been getting hot. They'll be healthier. Noted for a lack of big dudes earlier in the season. Jersey, we already gave Irby some airtime on Wisconsin. I'm going to ask you to convince us that Wisconsin is going to beat Arizona. Just straw man that argument.
That's absolutely possible. If Wisconsin's backcourt gets hot, Boyd and Blackwell, that's an extremely tough matchup, and that's entirely possible that they heat up. And Wisconsin's if Wisconsin starts shooting threes like they have a couple times, like we've seen over the last couple weeks, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat them. And so it's not out of the question. And not to mention, Dilly, if you want to, I just feel like Arizona, for being the number 2 overall seed, I feel like Purdue's one of the weakest number 2. And I feel like, if anything, Arizona got hosed on the top half of this bracket here with Wisconsin and Arkansas, and whoever comes out of that game just to actually get to the Great 8 feels like an awfully tough road for Arizona, and that could come into play too.
Irby convinces us even more to take Wisconsin here, possibly. Can you tell me or look up where the Sweet 16 matchup for the West is being held?
Yes, I will take a look.
Dilly, here's the deal. If Wisconsin hadn't beaten Michigan at Michigan, if Wisconsin hadn't beat Illinois at Illinois and then beat them on a neutral site, if Wisconsin didn't beat Michigan State at home, I would worry about this matchup, right? Because it always feels like Wisconsin's the smaller team, right? And not in stature, but the underdog. I don't know if they are. This team, arguably, they win that game against Michigan, they might be sitting on a 4 line and not have to see these guys until the Grade 8, right? Or later, and they're playing to go to the Final Four. This is a game that was going to happen inevitably. I believe the Wisconsin Badgers are trending to the same way. They beat arguably the best team in the country, right, in Michigan, at Michigan, when Michigan was playing their best. They didn't have a game at that time that they won that was less than 25 points. They still lead the NCAA in point differential and wins. This team in Wisconsin, here's the trouble, Dilly, and this is where I'm going to kind of bring it down to the level here. This is a team that could lose in the first round. Wisconsin's absolutely a team that could lose in the first round because they lay eggs out there during the season. They've seen it because if they don't make threes, so are we a little too high on them? Possibly. If you want to be safe in your bracket, take Arizona to move on here. I do like them. Here's the other thing, guys. If they have to play Purdue in that Grade 8 matchup to go to the Final Four, it's tough to beat a team twice in a row that short period of time. Bottom line.
Looks like the venue to San Jose, Dilly, which, if that's the case, could factor in. That's obviously way closer to the Arizona campus, but Wisconsin's going to travel well if they're there too. So,
yeah, I'm sure the fans travel well. I did want to at least acknowledge that Wisconsin is traveling out west. You know, once you're not the top seed, you're not in your own backyard. That's part of the gift of being the 1 seed. The bottom line is, I think, unless we want to do and name this show the Chalk Show and just have a bunch of 1 seeds, essentially, I think we got to go Wisconsin here because I'm just going to go back to it. Arizona, not enough big dudes. Too many 2-pointers, according to Irby 3 months ago.
Yes.
Don't like it. Arizona stinks. Should have been Houston and Iowa State out of that conference anyway. Wisconsin, Purdue. Total matchup of guys that suck versus guys that are good. Do you like Wisconsin here against Purdue, Jersey? Is it Purdue, whatever run this is, winning the Big Ten tournament, breezing past much maligned competition in the first 3 games in the NCAA tournament? Does it come to a screeching halt here for Purdue?
yes. How about this? I will take either Arizona or Wisconsin to beat Purdue, whoever wins that matchup. yes, I do think Purdue's season would come to an end in the Elite Eight one way or another.
Please, for the love of God, someone beat Braden Smith and Purdue Boilermakers prior to the Final Four, because I will not be watching that game ever in the Final Four, because everybody's going to tell me that Braden Smith is the best point guard. Look at how he plays. He plays the game the right way. You know, he's got great eyes. He's got eyes on the back of his head. He knows always where it is. Who cares? He's 65 years old. Get on with it. Anybody beats these guys. I'd love to see the Badgers. That's a great story. And the Badgers could get it done against an Iowa State team that's going to be fun to talk about here shortly. Badgers.
Are we sleeping on Queens in round 1 versus Purdue? No. Okay. Just had to check. Had to check how bad Purdue was. I mean, we know they're terrible, but they're not that bad. Let's get serious. Moving back to the East versus South matchup. Duke, Houston, powerhouse, who at this point has many injuries. Both boozers are out. Oh, my gosh. Playing a fully healthy Houston Cougars. And Druzy, he knows a thing or two about staring Cougars down. You just submit. That's the easiest path, right? Is that true?
Oh, 100%. You just go with the flow. Submit, lay down, and hope it all works out. But was there an actual question in there about basketball, Dilly? Or
who we got? Duke versus Houston Cougars.
I got Duke, which is hard for me to take again because of the health. But I feel like Duke has been so solid all year. Part of me has a hard time taking Duke, because of the health, like we've talked about, and the conference, which we've also trashed on several occasions, every opportunity. But I feel like Duke is one of the best teams, and I do like them to beat Houston. And I got Duke in the championship game.
Kirby, Jersey has a kind of an outlier take here that Duke is one of the best teams in the country. Is he getting out over his skis here? Do the Cougars have a chance?
He's way over his skis, and boy, is he putting himself out there, as Druzy normally does. He takes the number 1 overall pick to get to the national championship game. Boy, Drew, thanks for putting all the homework in and taking the number 1 rated team in the land to the championship game, but not so fast. Not so fast. I don't know, Jim, but here's the deal. The Houston Cougars and Calvin Sampson. He gets his first look, and I think he gets over the hump. I'm putting the cart before the horse. Calvin Sampson is going to be a national champion this year, but the Houston Cougars do get to that championship game, and they take down the Blue Devils. I think there is an injury in there in the next 3 weeks before the national championship game in this Final Four game, and I think Houston is built for this, and Calvin Sampson certainly will have them ready.
For the tiebreaker pick here, Cougars gonna hump their way to the Natty.
I don't mind getting overruled by a Cougar, so I'll submit. Good pick.
We got the Wisconsin Badgers versus. I don't know. I'm not the expert here. You guys got the Badgers in the Final Four. It's a shocking development. And they face UWGB, a late entry into the Midwest bracket. They play a play-in game for the Final Four versus Iowa State and crush them. Iowa State not Cougars versus the Wisconsin Badgers, Iowa State natural disasters. Is there a disaster on the horizon for the Wisconsin Badgers, Irby?
Yeah, this is where it stops for the Badgers. It's a safe pick if you're in the bracket. That's what you have to do. You got to take one team that you believe in to get to that final game so you have a chance to get those big points in the championship game. The Cyclones are they're a longer team than the Badgers. This is a game that actually is going to hurt the Badgers for having a little light on the height. Boyd's a small player. Blackwell holds his own, but the Cyclones are better in the backcourt as far as height. They're stronger. They're going to give Boyd some trouble shooting. I think Iowa State wins that game against the Badgers.
Jersey, take us through it.
Well, since I have the Badgers in the Final Four, I do like Iowa State to win this game. A lot of great points by Irby. Iowa State's a legit team, and I think at some point maybe Wisconsin just runs out of gas, or maybe they catch a cold shooting night from three, which can do it. You know, when you have these teams that when they rely on the three-pointer, and you got to kind of live by it or die by it, and if you get cold, that can happen. I feel like Iowa State's slightly better all-around team, and the Cyclones make it to the final.
That leads us to the final matchup of the college basketball year on the men's side. Iowa State Cyclones versus Houston Cougars in a rematch of not the Big 12 championship. This is a Big 12 championship, but without Arizona this time. Druzy, is anybody going to beat the Houston Cougars?
No one's going to beat the Houston Cougars, even though I had Duke just beating them a minute ago, but no one messes with the Cougars. Kelvin Sampson finally gets it done. Houston finally gets it done. They cut down the nets. Houston, your national champion.
Irby, take us home.
Can't disagree with you, Drew. It's destiny right now for the Cougars. I mean, which it a lot of times is over in South St. Paul with some of those Cougars running around. But here's the fact. I do like this game. It will be a fun, physical, neat championship game. If it is the Cyclones and the Houston Cougars, Calvin Sampson gets over the hump. He wins. Dilly, if you recall, when we started this college basketball whole thing, I said, quite frankly, there could be, if it works out correctly, there could be 4 Big 12 teams in the Final Four. And there could be that. There is a very legitimate way that there's 3 of the 4 are going to be Big 12 teams, because Arizona very well could be sitting where Wisconsin's sitting, that we have in our little bracket mess here. Big 12 is one of the top heavy leagues in the entire NCAA this year, and they've put in a lot of work, and they beat the shit out of each other week in and week out, especially down the stretch. I like Iowa State, but Calvin Sampson gets it done. The Houston Cougars are standing atop the NCAAs this year.
You heard it here first. Houston Cougars, national champs. You actually heard it first from Irby and maybe early December, maybe late November. That was his call. We stuck with it because the only research I do is listen to you guys talk about it, so I just go with that. We're going to do a quick little role playing here regards to Calcutta, and I'll give a quick little intro here. I've been in 2 different Calcuttas. One kind of evolved into what we would call the big money, too big of money Calcutta auction, where 1 seeds were regularly approaching or exceeding $2,000. The money gets evenly distributed, not evenly, it's weighted towards further rounds, but you can roughly say a round 1 win is, and then it doubles each time. So if you're spending that kind of money, obviously, I mean, you could get yourself in a scenario where you're not making money until they make it to the championship game. The other one was started kind of as an offshoot of that, different group of guys. A couple guys were in that one with me. The idea, the first couple of years was, we don't have a bunch of conglomerate teams because, the 4 or 5 guys get together, so their budget is $3,000, and that's how you get a $2,000 1 seed. This was going to be lighter than that. First year, 1 seeds around $600 or $700. Maybe 500. Now it's like 13, 14, 1500 sometimes. Yeah, it's grown into mega teams and bigger dollars. The odd part is in the lower, so to speak, the lower budget Calcutta, the lower seeds actually go for more as well. So a 14 seed might be $43 if it's kind of a favorite. And the other, quote, big money one, all the lower seeds, you could say get the 15 seeds for $20 flyer like that. In this one, I think some guys just get a little desperate and they just want some teams, and it gets a little silly. The role-playing aspect of this is, let's take the number 1 team. As Druzy pointed out for us, the Duke Blue Devils. If that's a $1,500 team, what do you think the Houston Cougars go for?
More.
It's not far off, yeah. I mean, plus or minus $150 maybe. Just a thought.
there is an issue with kind of how the order of teams goes too. So you can jump in early before like a team like Kansas, that could be one where we stop bidding at $300, and someone wins it at $320, and then you go through, and the rest of the 4 seeds go for $500, and Kansas is the steal of the draft, steal of the auction. So there's that aspect to think about. If there's a 1 seed we're going after, and this is considering path, where maybe it's not the championship, you have to look at, we kind of talked about, well, let's talk about it. Let's just talk about it. Purdue. We don't like Purdue. We're not even sure if they're good. But we kind of think they got 3 games in the bag. Would you want to purchase Purdue, a team, and this is kind of Irby, first one Irby, $500,
Yes.
$750 on Purdue?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Oh, gross.
It is gross, but I think it's the right move, just because you said, Dilly, if you can bank 3 games,
Yeah.
which is what we feel like is going to happen.
So even though we like Houston more, well, I mean, this is maybe a bad example.
So does everybody else.
Yeah, but I was going to say, but they face Illinois in the Sweet 16 in our projections. That's probably, let's go back and look. Well, UConn sucks, so they're out. They're losing to UCLA or Michigan State. But, I mean, Houston is obviously our favorite 2 seed, but they don't have the easiest path. You could make a case for paying more for Purdue. Iowa State also has a similar scenario. Maybe Iowa State, because of the championship potential, they kind of have a 3-game bye. If we think Virginia stinks, Tennessee stinks, on down the line. Are we prepared as humans? And again, this is strategic. I don't know why we're giving this out, but can we find it within ourselves to pay more for a lesser 2 seed?
I think so. I think that's part of the strategy, Dilly, right? Versus picking the games, which we've done here on the angle, versus your strategy from the Calcutta is almost how to hedge your bet, right? Where's the easiest path sometimes?
It's cost effectiveness, right? It's cost effectiveness and distance that they can go. So you have to be. I think the strategy, if you're role playing here, Dilly, is you have to go through and yourself, us as a group, and look at the 2, 3, and 4s, and you have to pick which 2, 3, and 4 seed you like best to win is the most amount of games. I've already said that the Midwest is probably the weakest bracket that's out there because I don't believe in Michigan at all. So I'm not overpaying for Michigan. I will overpay for Duke and Florida because Duke and Florida, I see a clear path to the grade 8 or the Elite 8, however you want to look at it. I don't see that with Michigan, and I don't see that with Arizona. Like, those are 2 1 seeds I want to stay away from. And here's the deal, too. Maybe everybody else does. So if everybody else stays away from those one seeds, maybe we can steal a 1 seed there at a fairly bargain amount. That's the strategy of a Calcutta. You have to see what team has the easiest path. In your view, somebody's going to get upset.
Now, we're not going to spend much on 9 seeds or 8 seeds, even though we like some of them. What is a 11, 12, 13 seed? Can we find one in the next, without going 2 minutes of dead air? Even a 10 seed. Can we find a 10, 11, 12, 13 seed that we think can win 2? And is it McNeese and McNeese only?
A little bit about South Florida, Dilly. Maybe one to put on the radar as an 11. Like, I feel like, they'd have to play Michigan State next, so maybe not the greatest, but McNeese is a good option too. I don't know your thoughts, Herbs.
Yeah, I don't mind VCU. I don't think they win 2. I think they win 1. So that doesn't hit there. But I like South Florida. I like South Florida as a team that can win 2 games, possibly, because they run through Michigan State, so that's probably not a great choice either. I like Miami of Ohio, to be honest, because that's in that weak Midwest bracket. I like Miami of Ohio at 11, winning 2 games.
Yeah, Miami of Ohio is the other one that we could see winning and then beating Tennessee and Virginia. Those aren't insurmountable tasks. Probably not beating Ohio State, according to us. So there's a little bit of a limitation there. Is there any teams in and I'm kind of looking at North Carolina. I'm kind of, heaven forbid we say Vanderbilt. Again, these teams that we think suck, but if we feel good about McNeese, do we feel like Vanderbilt, if they stayed hot, can win their first game, can beat Nebraska? I guess maybe it's that little group, not including Troy, Vanderbilt, McNeese, Nebraska. One of those teams got to win 2 games.
Yeah, so that's also the strategy with a Calcutta. If you can get a McNeese at a cost, and then you could grab one of the other 2 teams, like a Nebraska or a Vanderbilt, and guarantee yourself a win there somewhere, and get it. That's fine too. If it's affordable, but you can't pay $600 for all 3 of them.
Right. Well, because we talked about we didn't really we sort of picked Nebraska / McNeese, but we didn't really like it. So that's a good call, Herbs.
Do you think that the earliest, I guess we got Arizona and Michigan, bit of an early exit, earliest being Arizona, but we don't even have to have that discussion because Wisconsin is going to get bid to a point I'm going to not be comfortable with, but I'll defer to you guys. Are we overlooking a team like Texas Tech, who we don't love?
Toppins out. Don't even mess with Texas Tech unless you can get it really cheap. What did you say?
They're a Big 12 team.
Yeah, but that's a Big 12 team that's played well with Toppin, who's by far the best player, and he has no chance of playing again. His ACL's done. He's out. So it's not even the same team. And that's why, quite frankly, is why they're on the 6 line right now, right? That's Texas Tech on the 6 line?
They're a 5-12 against Akron.
Yeah, so that I don't see Texas Tech coming out of that first round game. I'd take Akron before I'd take Texas Tech.
Dilly, thoughts on Arkansas? We talked about, maybe Wisconsin getting bid up. Do you hedge your bet? Does that mean Arkansas comes at a reduced price? I mean, just a thought. I know we don't necessarily want to do it for our rooting purposes, but your guys' rooting purposes.
Yeah, I like Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd definitely be one to monitor, especially because we thought either way, the winner of the 4-5 matchup is going to be a tough matchup for Arizona, so there's some opportunity there. I will say in Classic, you got to remember a lot of these Wisconsin fans that will be involved, they're Western Wisconsin fans, geographically. They've grown up in the western part of the state, which means some of the Minnesota negativity, and some of us obviously still live here, seeps in pretty deeply. So as much as they want Wisconsin, they'll also hate hedge and probably bid up Arkansas too. I mean, this honest to God truth, there'll probably be some hate hedging, hate themselves. I hate myself so much. I'm gonna bid higher on Arkansas just in case.
I've got my eyes on the clock here. We're at 53 minutes. Let's make sure people don't look at this episode and be like, what are they talking about Elite 8 for 57 minutes for?
Really? Your wisdom is granted. I'm in charge of the show, so I'm going to disregard what you said. We're going to power on directly to the close. Final thoughts, Druzy?
Can't wait for it. This is the best time of year. I love Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. To me, it's the best 4 sports days of the year. We've covered everything here on the Audible Angle, so the listeners and viewers should be equipped with all the knowledge that they need, and I can't wait. I appreciate you guys having me on again.
Druzy, it's always a pleasure. Audible Angle Nation, we're doing yourselves a favor this year. You can take the entire week off. Monday's a snow day. Tuesday, St. Patty's Day. Get hammered. Sleep in on Wednesday. Get prepared for the greatest 4 days, as Druzy has said. That happens every year this time of year. The 3rd week in March. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Wake up early. Not too early, Druzy, because it doesn't start until 1 o'clock on Thursday. Don't forget that. A little bit earlier on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But we'll get rolling. Looking forward to it, guys. Stay sober enough to remember those 11 o'clock games.
Get a couple emails queued up to hit send in the afternoon on Thursday. Cover your ass if you're going to pretend to work that day. Probably just take Friday off. Maybe take Thursday off, too. Everybody else is anyway, even if they say they're working We'll see you boys soon at the Calcutta auction. I do have an unopened email in my inbox, so I assume that's giving us time and links and stuff. Hopefully that didn't get changed to tonight and we missed it. It's always possible. See you, boys.
Later, boys.